The assassination of Benigno Aquino Jr. Benigno Aquino Jr., also known as Benigno Simeon Ninoy Aquino Jr., was a Filipino politician who served as a senator of the Philippines and governor of the province of Tarlac. He was the husband of the former Philippine President Corazon Aquino and the father of former Philippine President Benigno Aquino III. He was born in November 27, 1932 and died in August 21, 1983 at Manila International Airport. He was also a governor official way back then. Presidential Advisor on Defense Affairs, Governor of Tarlac, Vice Governor of Tarlac, Mayor of Concepcion, Tarlac. Who killed Ninoy Aquino?
Benigno Simeon Cuangco Aquino Jr. was killed at Manila International Airport, which is now known as Ninoy Aquino International Airport. It serves as a tribute after his death. So now we're going to talk about the summary of the events during the assassination of Benigno Simeon.
During an interview before he flew back to the country using a passport with the name Marshal Bonifacio, Aquino was quoted saying, "I cannot allow myself to be fortified by the fear of assassination and spend my life in a corner." Trying to be as discreet as possible, Aquino's journey back to Manila had many detours. According to a New York Times piece which detailed the circuitous tour, Aquino first set foot in various countries like Singapore and Taiwan before boarding on China Airlines Flight 811, which took him back to Manila. A bullet to the head. Past 1 p.m. on August 21, 1983, the airline's carrying Aquino arrived at the Manila International Airport, now also known as Ninoy Aquino International Airport, as hundreds of supporters waited. He was escorted by soldiers from his set to a waiting military vehicle that was supposed to take him to Fort Bonifacio. A few seconds after he exited the airplane, gunshots were heard. As the firing cleared, a bloody Aquino was seen lying on the ground together with another body, later identified as Rolando Galman. The bodies of Galman and Aquino on the tarmac of the Manila International Airport in 1983, screenshot from YouTube video of Government PH, and autopsy report said that the death of Aquino was a result of brain acceleration and intracranial hemorrhage, secondary to gunshot wound at the head. The fatal bullet, it added, was fired close range. Those are the different information that was gathered in different sources.
A very long funeral procession. The death of Aquino sparked outrage from supporters and critics of the Marcos administration alike. Aquino's body, dressed in the same blooded clothes he wore on the fateful day, were visited by thousands of supporters and sympathizers. The funeral procession was attended by many. Photo from the Presidential Museum and Library Flickr account. His funeral procession on August 31, 1993 lasted for more than 10 hours. From a funeral mass at Santo Domingo Church in Quezon City, Aquino's coffin was transported to his final resting place at Manila Memorial Park on the top of a flatbed truck adorned with yellow flowers.
As a continuation, and according to news report, despite the heat and later thunderstorms, thick crowds of more than 1 million of people flocked the streets during the procession to their last pay of respect. Two commissions were created by Marcos to investigate Aquino's death. 3 days after Aquino's death, on August 24, 1983, Marcos created a commission by virtue of Administrative Order Number 469 to allow a free, unlimited, and exhaustive investigation of the incident. Marcos appointed then the Chief Justice Enrique Fernando as a chairman, and retired Justice Roberto Martin, Guillermo Santos, and Felix Antonio as the members. Former Chief Justice Roberto Concepcion was also appointed but later declined. The Fernando Concepcion, however, was dissolved due to the public criticism. Marcos replaced the short-lived commission with an independent fact-finding body through the Presidential Decree number 8, 1886. The commission consisted of former Court of Appeals Justice Corazon Agrava, Ernesto Herrera, Amando Dizon, Luciano Salazar, and Dante Santos. After almost a year of investigation, the public hearings, the Agrava board submitted 2 reports to Marcos, a minority report pinned by Agrava alone and majority submitted by the other members. In her minority report, Agrava concluded that the assassination of Aquino was a military conspiracy. She, however, cleared Fabian Ver. Meanwhile, the majority report indicated Ver. General Luther Constudio, ABSICOM head, General Prosperio Olivas, among other members of armed forces. More than 20 military personnel were charged in 1985 for the murder of Aquino and Galman. However, a Sandigan Bayan ruling acquitted all accused of a few months later.
In 1990, the Sandigan Bayan convicted 16 military personnel, including Custodio, of murder and were sentenced to life imprisonment. According to the ruling, based on narrations of 2 witnesses, it was Rogelio Moreno who fired the fatal shot that killed Aquino, not Galman. In 2005, the Supreme Court denied a petition filed by the convicts to reopen the trial, with finality for lack of merit. In the following years, however, the convicts either died or were released from prison. In 2007, Pablo Martinez was pardoned by then-President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo on humanitarian grounds. In 2010, 10 more convicts were released. Martinez, who upon his release reiterated that Eduardo Danding Huangco was the mastermind behind the Aquino assassination, was killed in a hit-and-run incident along Quezon City Boulevard in 2014.
Aquino was elected to the Philippine Senate in 1967 and shortly thereafter began speaking out against Marcos's authoritarian rule. He was imprisoned on trumped-up charges shortly after Marcos's 1972 declaration of martial law. In 1980, he suffered a heart attack in prison and was allowed to leave the country 2 months later by Marcos's wife, Imelda. He spent the next 3 years in exile near Boston before deciding to return to the Philippines. Aquino's assassination is credited with transforming the opposition to the Marcos regime from a small isolated movement into a national crusade. It is also credited with thrusting Aquino's widow, Corazon Aquino, into the public spotlight and her running for president in the snap election of 1986. Although Marcos was officially declared the winner of the election, widespread allegations of fraud and illegal tampering on Marcos's behalf are credited with sparking the People Power Revolution, which resulted in Marcos fleeing the country and conceding the presidency. Although Marcos was officially declared the winner of the election, widespread allegations of fraud and illegal tampering on Marcos's behalf are credited with sparking the People Power Revolution, which resulted in Marcos fleeing the country and conceding the presidency to Corazon Aquino. Although many, including the Aquino family, maintain that Marcos ordered Aquino's assassination, this was never definitely proven. An official government investigation ordered by Marcos shortly after the assassination led to murder charges against 25 personnel and 1 civilian. All were acquitted by the Sandigan Bayan. After Marcos was ousted, Another government investigation under Corazon Aquino's administration led to a retrial and the conviction of 16 military personnel, all of whom were sentenced to life imprisonment. Since their conviction, one of the convicts was pardoned. 3 died in prison, and the remainder had their sentences commuted at various times. The last convicts were released from prison in 2009.
There are 6 suspected individuals of the assassination of Benigno Simeon Cuanco Aquino Jr. They are
Rolando Galman,
the 5 wise monkeys,
Eduardo Danding Cuanco Jr.,
General Fabian Ver,
Imelda Marcos,
and Ferdinand Marcos. Rolando Gorman, who is he? That is the question. He's the guy in the blue shirt who was gunned down a few seconds after Ninoy Aquino was shot at the tarmac of the Manila International Airport. Why is he a suspect? It is because Coleman had a certain reputation of an underworld figure with military lights. In other words, there is a reason to believe that he might be a hired killer, paid by an unidentified mastermind to assassinate Aquino. For the Marcos administration, however, Coleman was a communist hitman who killed Aquino on the orders of the New York's army. So after the death of Benigno Simeon Cuanco Jr., Dr. Benvenido Munoz performed an autopsy of his body. It was a cross-examination that the bullet was directed upward, downward, and medially, proving Goldman, who was standing on the tarmac and pointing upward, was one who shot Aquino. The initial evidence seemed incredible, but it was outnumbered by those that suggest Goldman was more of a fool.
The 5 wise monkeys. Who are they? 5 military officers who under Marcos Oplan Balikbayan were tasked to escort Aquino from the plane to Fort Bonifacio where he would be detained. The group was composed of Corporal Rogelio Moreno, Corporal Lazaga, Sergeant Arnolfo de Mesa, Technical Sergeant Claro Lat, and Lieutenant Castro. Why are they considered suspect? According to eyewitness, it was the military escort, not Gallman, as what earlier report has suggested who actually killed Aquino. They claim the few moments after Aquino stopped off the plane, they heard the security escort saying, "Ako na, ako na, ako na," and pastila, which means an order to shoot in southern Filipino. However, the 5 men denied the allegations of reiterated that they saw nothing.
Eduardo Danding Cuanco Jr. Who is he? One of the richest men in the Philippines. Danding Cuanco Jr. is the chairman of the Corporation San Miguel, the first cousin of the former President Corazon Cory Aquino. Why is he considered a suspect? Cuanco was a known Marcos crony and also a member of the Rolex 12, who helped enforce the martial law. And take note that martial law were initially ruled by Ferdinand Marcos. At that time, Cuanco was also in conflict with Cory and his cousin-in-law Ninoy. Cuanco was implicated to the murder when Pablo Martinez, one of the 16 soldiers who was convicted in the Aquino-Gallman race, named the former as the mastermind behind the assassination. The said officials were later identified to be Colonel Romeo Ochoco, then Deputy Commander of the Aviation Security Command, or AVESICOM, Philippine Constabulary Brigadier General Romeo Gatan, and a businessman Hermino Gushiko. Incidentally, Gushiko was a known associate of Danding Cuanco, and this is when Danding did it. Martinez died on May 7, 2014, after being hit by an SUV while biking along Rojas Boulevard. Authorities said it was an accident, but his relatives believe.
General Fabian Ver. Who is he? former general of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, and the most trusted military officers of the late President Ferdinand Marcos. Why is he a suspect? Burr was indicated by the Agrabah Commissions in 1983 as the mastermind behind the Aquino Gallman case. The Agrabah Commission was established in October 1983 under the orders of President Marcos in further investigate the Aquino murder. However, the fact-finding board recommended no charges against Burr, and he was acquitted in 1985. He also added Ninoy was given special treatment. While the latter was in military detention, Burr said that allegations against him were unfounded because he would waste his time to protect Ninoy and in fact protect the president and myself, only to later endanger it by ordering his death in broad daylight.
Imelda Marcos. Who is she? Former First Lady and widow of President Ferdinand Marcos. Why is she a suspect? Imelda Romualdez Marcos reportedly said in front of print and broadcast media that if Aquino gets home, he's dead. The statement came shortly after her failed attempt in New York to convince Senator Benigno Aquino Jr. not to return to the Philippines due to threats to his life. At that time, Marcos was already diagnosed with lupus and Imelda was afraid, as other Marcos cronies, that somebody like Ninoy would come to overview them. At that time, Marcos was already diagnosed with lupus, and Imelda was afraid, as other Marcos cronies, that somebody like Ninoy would come to overthrow them. Some sources also claim that Imelda formed a faction in anticipation of Marcos' death and then ordered Burr to take care of Ninoy's assassination.
Ferdinand Marcos. Who is he? Ferdinand Marcos is the 10th president of the Philippines and a political rival of the slain Senator Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr. Why is he considered a suspect? It is known fact that Ninoy Aquino was the late strongman's political nemesis, so it should come as no surprise that Marcos is being blamed for the senator's untimely death. For the Marcos supporters, however, the assassination was a mere ploy of opportunists to kick the dictator out of his throne. Why assassinating Aquino in broad daylight? It is because it could have easily eliminated the senator by affirming the death sentence for the rebellion imposed just earlier. In addition to that, Aquino and Marcos were also fraternity brothers. Such fratricide, according to Aurelie Sensuat of the Upsilon Sigma Phi, is an affront and insult to the sincere fraternal bonds that have held the institution together for almost 95 years. That is the moral of the fraternity. As Imelda, she still claims that her husband was too ill to plot the assassination. She also added that the President Marcos was probably part of a grand conspiracy to ensure success of the assassination at the expense of the late president. Despite the allegations, President Marcos was never convicted of the crime, nor was any evidence found that would directly think or link him to the assassination, or that would directly link him that he was the killer, or he paid someone to kill Benigno Juanco Simeon Aquino Jr.
There were no one convicted to the death of the late Benigno Juanco Aquino Jr.
But the question is, who killed Ninoy Aquino?